So looks like Brandon's boiling down to 6 here. Alright guys, here we are into round 3 of today's Star City Games Invitational Qualifier from Lost Legion Games and Comics in South Charleston, West Virginia. We're right into the action. We're on the right, we have Brandon Gibbs playing Gruul Aggro, starting off with a turn 1 Strong Kirk Noble into a Burning Tree Lightning Mauler chain. So basically the nuts so far out of Brandon's deck. His opponent, stream regular Jonathan Wright, who is playing a blue-white control deck, which appears to be one of the breakout decks of this tournament. Not that I'm going to suggest that this local tournament in semi-suburban West Virginia is a telling factor of the overall Magic metagame. It is interesting to see a fair number of blue-white control decks in this field. So Brandon adds a turn 3 Ash Zealot and pounds in with everybody. Jonathan's turn 2 Augur of Bolas revealed a Supreme Verdict, so we know that he's fine if he can get to the endgame. But he's taking 6 here and dropping all the way down to 9 against a deck that is playing Burn Spells and Gore-Clan Rampagers. So we'll see if there's anything he can do about any of the cards on the board currently. Interesting there that Jonathan chose to block the Strong Kirk Noble to keep the counter off of it as opposed to taking out the Lightning Mauler. Be interesting to see if he has an Azorius Charm here. No, Snapcaster Mage. Snapcaster Mage is going to trade with the Lightning Mauler. He's going to take 4, dropping to 5 from the unblocked Ash Zealot and the Emissary. Just passing back to Brandon, so if we have a 4th land, we know the verdict is going to come. But Jonathan, having stabilized at 5 life, not nearly as comfortable as he would like to be in this situation. So there is the 4th land and the verdict. So we're resetting the board here. We'll see what Brandon's follow-up is to this board wipe. There's a mountain. Just Searing Spearing Jonathan while he's tapped out. So Jonathan dead to a lot of cards here and well off mana for a legitimate Sphinx's Revelation. Though he can Sphinx for 2 should he have it in his hand and at least get himself out of Pillar and Spear range. Looking at his deck list, Brandon is playing 3 Pillars and 4 Spears, along with another Ash Zealot and another Mauler and a full package of Flinthoof Boars, all of which will be lethal in this spot. But no, he can't come up with anything, so the Jace Architect of Thoughts is going to possibly draw Jonathan some more cards, try to get out of this situation. There's a Dissipate, a land, and a Detention Sphere. It's probably going to be Counterspell or no. And if you're Jonathan, you have to take the Counterspell here since you're dead to so many cards off the top of Brandon's deck. So, playing his 6th land tapped with a Dissipate in hand that Brandon knows about. And Brandon, unfortunately, drawing a lot of lands off the top of his deck. Looks like we're going to see a Think Once here. And Jonathan, very wisely, not willing to flash back and tap out, knowing that he's dead to a Burn Spell out of Brandon's hand. So Jonathan's going to draw more cards off of his Jace. Augur, Think Twice, and land. Augur or no? I think Jonathan's content. No, he's going to take the Augur, because that will at least give him somewhat of an out, or at least a temporary fog to a haste creature. Jonathan revealing Sphinx's Revelation. So a back-breaking reveal for Brandon. He's going to Pillar Jonathan, forcing him to cast the Dissipate this turn. Instead, he's going to draw up to... Very interesting there, using the Sphinx's Revelation to effectively counter the Pillar, so sacrificing the ability to draw cards and gain more life later in the game to be able to keep his hard counter on board. So while this game is very much in Jonathan's control at this point, it'd be very unlikely that a hell-bent Brandon is going to be able to come up with a way to claw out of this. Jonathan's still struggling for an actual win condition. Be interesting to see if this is a time when we see a Jace AOT go ultimate. So now with a comfortable amount of mana available, Jonathan going ahead and flashing back that Think Twice that we saw earlier. He's going to keep ticking Jace up. He might be trying to ultimate it. And another land off the top from Brandon here. Jonathan not short for mana, that's for sure. Continuing to +1 Jace, more importantly, Brandon continuing to draw lands off the top of his deck. He only has he only has 21 in his deck. He's already drawn 9 of them. Of course, this the Gruul Aggro deck that Brandon's playing is playing 4 main deck Burning Earth, which is a card that the greedy mana bases of Standard has a very difficult time dealing with. And is part of the reason why the blue-white decks have emerged as opposed to the American or Esper control decks, as they get to play a fair number of basic lands, and therefore aren't absolutely dead to Burning Earth. We're going to see an Essence Scatter take care of Gorklan Rampager, which is actually still important as he gets to keep that Dissipate that was revealed off that Augur ages ago. Still has that hard counter in hand. But having found an Aetherling, Jonathan now has a clock. If he chooses to pump the maximum and attack with the Augur Bolus, it's a 2-turn clock here. And that is exactly what he's doing. So Brandon dead on board, facing down what we know is a Dissipate in Jonathan's hand. Brandon knows it's a Dissipate in Jonathan's hand. So this is effectively over. Brandon passing the turn and scooping up his cards. So an amazing start for Brandon. Turn 1, Stromkirk Noble into turn 2, Emissary into Mauler. Got Jonathan all the way down to 2, but Jonathan able to stabilize at just the last minute. And he pulls out game 1 in this round 3 feature match. Both of these players are 1-1 on the day. Jonathan winning his round 1 and then losing last round, and Brandon doing the opposite. But they're all drawing live to the top 8, as this is a 5-round Swiss tournament followed by a cut to top 8. 4-1 will be more than enough to get in. So their fate is in their own hands. Let's look at the sideboards as these guys do in fact sideboard up. So like we said, Brandon Gibbs playing the Burning Gruul list, which is basically the same Gruul Aggro list that we've seen for months, but now with the main deck for Burning Earth. New card out of M14, which really punishes multicolor mana bases. In his sideboard for this matchup, looks like the most important card is 4 Skullcracks for Brandon, which will help him not only counter Sphinx's Revelation's life gain, but also give him some extra burn spells. The rest of his sideboard looks like stuff for the Mirror and stuff against Juns and some Traitorous Bloods. And there is a Pillar of Flame. The Pillar might come in as well. It's not nearly as good against Jonathan's deck as his really only hits Snapcaster Mages, as Augur Bolus is slightly too big, but he might bring that in if he wants to up his burn spell count. Now let's look at Jonathan's blue-white control list, more of a classic build. Like I said, it's the second deck we've seen today with this kind of build. It seems to be a deck that the control archetypes are shifting to as a result of Burning Earth. He's going to probably bring in a Dispel. He has a couple of Celestial Flares, which are really big. He also has 3 copies of Terminus. It'll be interesting to see if he decides to bring those in. He's got a Renounce the Guilds, which will likely come in because Brandon's deck is a Boros Reckoner deck, as well as having Gore Clan Rampagers should he hardcast those. And then one of Blind Obedience. Last night at FNM, Jonathan, who won our FNM last night, was playing the Blind Obedience in the main deck. It looks like he has switched that over to the sideboard for today's event, but that will more than likely come into play as it seriously hampers the haste creatures out of the Gruul Aggro deck. So that looks like what the two guys are going to be bringing in. Jonathan also has some number of Oblivion Rings. I'm not sure if he really wants to bring those in or not. They are additional answers to Reckoner, but they are a tad bit slow. Oh, yeah, I have... Jonathan won that game. I just haven't updated the total there at the top of the page. So apologies for that, but we got that squared away. Also want to take this time, if everybody is enjoying us, I think right now we are the most viewed Magic stream currently on Twitch today, so we appreciate you guys checking us out for that. And if you're enjoying what you see, you want to see more of this kind of content, we do have a weekly FNM stream. Obviously, we don't have Star City IQs every weekend, but we do a fair number of other events, including our weekly FNM stream. So if you like what you see, make sure you follow us on our various forms of social media, youtube.com/ZachSellsMagic. Everything we have ever recorded for the last 50 weeks is up on our YouTube, including pre-release drafts, cube drafts, there's one legacy event, there's multiple pre-release sealed events, as well as countless numbers of standard FNMs, as well as West Virginia States from last year, and a previous Star City IQ. You can follow me on Twitter at ZachSellsMagic for stream news, as well as for various Magic tidbits throughout the week. But most importantly, if you're on Facebook, go to our Facebook page at facebook.com/ZachSellsMagic. You can see a theme here, as all of our usernames are at ZachSellsMagic. The Facebook page is basically a daily Magic news aggregator, not just from the stream itself, but there's all kinds of pictures, videos, and information about events here at the store, as well as events on the stream. But there's also just daily news stories about Magic, interesting links to content around the web. And then finally, you're watching us live on Twitch, so make sure you click the follow button so you'll get an email notification anytime our stream goes live. So if you guys could help us out with a couple of Facebook likes and YouTube subscribes, Twitter follows, and whatnot. We do weekly giveaways on our FNM stream. This week we're giving away 2 copies of promo FNM Lingering Souls, so if you'd like to win those, head over to our Facebook page and look for more information on that. But just in general, if you could follow us and help us spread the word about our humble little Magic podcast, we would greatly appreciate it. We are literally the best Magic broadcast originating from a broom closet in southern West Virginia. So these guys look like they have sideboarded up. Brandon's going to be on the play, which is a huge advantage for him. Of course, he was on the play last turn, and still, despite having almost all haste creatures, could not beat a turn 4 Supreme Verdict out of Jonathan. Jonathan's deck playing the Augur of Bullets, whereas a lot of American decks are not playing that. Gives him a huge advantage in this matchup compared to other control archetypes. Question in the chat about rock, paper, scissors cards to give away. Unfortunately, our usual giveaway of rock, paper, scissors cards is no longer happening because it's just too hard to get them, and I have run out of my own personal collection. More importantly, let's get back to the action here. Same turn 1 start from Brandon as he sees a Stromkirk Noble, but instead of chaining with an Emissary, we see a Ash Zealot, and we see Jonathan revealing a Terminus. Brandon's going to be pretty excited about that, as it's the least impactful card in this matchup when it is cast from the hand. It's going to be a long time before Jonathan's going to be able to hard cast that. So Jonathan's going to chump one of these guys, and we're going to see a Gore Clan Rampager. So that's going to be a 6/6 Stromkirk Noble and a 2/2 Ash Zealot. So we're going to take 4 trampling from the Stromkirk, still going to get his counter, and drop Jonathan down to 12. And Brandon's going to follow up with an Unleashed Rakdos Cackler. So Brandon in a pretty good spot here, having already burned through one Augur of Bolas. Jonathan still 2 turns away from Supreme Verdict. He does reveal a verdict off of the second Augur of Bolas. Let's see what his land situation is like. So Brandon needs to get as much damage in as he can here. Interesting to note that Jonathan chose to play the Augur to clog up the ground game. Did not play the Blind Obedience, which is in his hand. So Brandon's going to be able to force through 4 damage here, so Jonathan's life total effectively at 8. Can he come up with the rest of the damage? Of course, we know that worst case scenario for Brandon, or worst case scenario for Brandon, Jonathan untaps, plays a 4th land, and Supreme Verdict's the board away, but then Brandon's going to have access to 4 mana, 3 cards in hand, and a tapped out opponent. So it looks like Jonathan might not... Oh, Terminus off the top. Terminus off the top. So saving that Supreme Verdict. Going to, in response, Searing Spear Jonathan down to 4. And then that's all the responses he has. So all the creatures going to the bottom of their respective libraries. Jonathan having stabilized at 4. More importantly, we know that he still has a Supreme Verdict in hand. End of turn, Searing Spear. Brandon Helmet now. What's on the top of the deck? He's got him to 1. It's just a stomping ground. So Jonathan in a pretty good spot here. His Blind Obedience is going to beast haste creatures. He's going to be able to extort now with the Blind Obedience to get himself out of burn range. But he's still dead to a burn spell here. And Brandon, unfortunately, drawing 2 lands off the top of his deck. So this might be the last turn that Jonathan has an opportunity to not die to a single Searing Spear. He's up to 3, but he's tapped out. Unless he plays an island and he sighted in Dispels, he's going to be naked here. He's going to go ahead and serve in with his Augur, knowing that haste creatures are not available. Is it a Spear? No, it's a Temple Garden. You gotta feel bad for Brandon in this spot. He only plays 21 lands, and in both games he's drawn a considerable number of them. So it looks like Jonathan may have pulled this one out, despite only being on 3 lands. We see an Essence Scatter in his hand. Jonathan's just content to discarding both Terminuses that he revealed earlier. But the only one that mattered was the one that he miracled. There's a Flint Hoof Boar. Comes into play tapped. Jonathan considering his options here. We know he has an Essence Scatter. Does he want to use another removal spell is the question. No, he wants to Essence Scatter and Extort. So that singleton copy of Blind Obedience that came out of the sideboard doing a lot of work here. So Brandon's found a spell here. It looks like a Boros Drag. No, it's a Hardcast Goreplan Rampage. No, it's a Burning Earth. There's no way this is going to resolve, I would think. I don't know what kind of counter magic Jonathan has in hand, as the only counter spell I saw was the Essence Scatter he just used. I see a Restoration Angel in his hand. Oh, and the Burning Earth is going to resolve. In response, he's going to tap out for the Restoration Angel and hope to race Brandon. And there's a Sphinx's Revelation, so that's going to help. Though Jonathan's still on only 4 lands here. So Jonathan in a spot here as he only has 1 basic. only has one basic. He's basically going to just have to hope he can race here. Kind of caught with his pants down with no counterspell in hand. We know he has no counterspell. Does Brandon have a burn spell? So the dynamics of this match have changed drastically, though Jonathan does have Brandon on a 3-turn clock with the creatures in hand. But unlikely that Jonathan's ever going to be able to tap his mana base. So very fortunate to have that Restoration Angel in hand to put a clock down on the board. Brandon has drawn a Stomping Ground, either last turn or this turn, and I'm not sure what the other card is. Come in.
Hey y'all.
So,
For view control.
Yep. So Brandon with 2 cards in hand, not sure what the second one is. The Stomping Ground obviously just representing some kind of business.
Oh, there's a Burning Earth in play.
Yeah, the Burning Earth resolved about 3 turns ago. Jonathan had no counterspell, but fortunately for him,
This is an awesome game.
Fortunately for him, he was able to flash in Restoration Angel in response and is just trying to race Brandon. Brandon has had some pretty unfortunate luck. Both games he's got Jonathan down to about 2 life and then has drawn lands off the top of his deck. Last game he finished the game with 10 lands in play. He only plays 21.
It's brutal.
It is kind of rough.
Something similar just happened to me.
Well, Magic is a game of variance.
It is.
So I'm not sure what Brandon can do here. The Blind Obedience is going to...
negate any blockers.
Yep, he's not going to be able to do anything. There's a significant number of haste creatures in Brandon's deck, all of which are irrelevant because of the Blind Obedience.
He needs a Mesmeric Mortars. Follow-up burn spell.
I'm not sure there's anything Brandon can do here. I know he has 2 cards in his hand, and I know one of them is a Stomping Ground.
He needs to cast something, and Jonathan rewinds it with none of his basic lands.
Jonathan draws another Restoration Angel, which might as well be a blank. So Brandon is drawing live here.
What do we got? Spear you?
Spear you.
You're the one. This is brutal.
And Brandon has just enough basics that he can go down to 1 and not die himself.
He has another spear.
But we know Jonathan has a Sphinx's Revelation in his hand that he revealed earlier.
He can't cast it. He didn't have one basic.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, I don't know why I was thinking about that. Does Brandon have... I guess Brandon had 3 cards in hand. I didn't realize it. Does he have another burn spell?
So Jonathan's dead. I mean, even if Jonathan has a negate.
If Jonathan has a negate, he can go down to 3 and then dies
To another spear.
to another spear.
He only has a speed thing Brandon can have.
Yeah, and he's already used 1 spear already. But if he just takes this, he's dead to a pillar.
We're on Jonathan's attack step. So
Yeah, we're mid... Oh yeah, we're mid-combat here.
and I don't know.
Maybe is Brandon just trying to bait him into doing something dumb? I mean, if you're dead on board, there's no reason to not try it, you know what I mean? But
Just regardless, Jonathan has to let this off. Take 2.
think twice and extort? What?
So now Brandon can't share himself again.
Yeah, but Jonathan can't tap his mana, right?
That's fine. Oh no, Jonathan's dead. Yeah. Brandon had nothing, I guarantee it.
What was the card in his hand? Flip those cards over.
We'll have to ask him. Yeah, I guarantee he's not going to show it.
So did he just Jedi mind trick
Yes.
Jonathan
Yes.
into killing
I
himself?
guarantee you he did.
So in that situation, I mean, it's not like Jonathan made a misplay. It's just Jonathan's trying to think, all right, my opponent is clearly not, but, he's got to give Brandon credit for having some business in hand.
Right.
So he's trying to play around. If he lets the Searing Spear resolve, he goes down to 1. Then if Brandon has another spear, he's dead because he can't tap his mana.
Right.
So he extorts, tries to go up to 3 and draw a card. But what I imagine is Jonathan didn't have any counter magic in his hand at all, and was just trying to figure out a way where he could get up to a life total where he would.
So if he drew a Thought-Scour there, he could Thought-Scour and Distort, go to 1, and then Brandon would just die. So that was what he was trying to draw to.
Well, he doesn't play Thought Scour.
Does he have any other one mana?
He's just playing blue-white.
So what 1 mana instant was he trying to draw to there?
I don't know. Oh, yeah.
I don't think that was the correct play if he didn't have a 1 mana. If he didn't have a way to kill him.
Well, I'm not going to go out there and talk to them in the middle of the game, but I'm very curious to see how that game played out. What was amazing in the first instance was that Jonathan at that point in the game did not have a counterspell in his hand.
Wait, what?
Though counterspells aren't necessarily as tremendous in this matchup as in other matchups, but when the Burning Earth resolved, Brandon was hellbent. He drove through lands off the top before he got to that point. So when it resolved, I mentioned the
so well, and then people didn't
game changes entirely because of you go from not having any kind of threat to the best threat your deck can produce.
And as far as control decks go, this is the best control deck to fight against a Burning deck. Because he has the basics, he has the Oblivion Ring type effects to get rid of it.
Yeah, it was very interesting. I'd be very interested to talk to both of them after this to try and figure out what was going on. So Jonathan clearly trying to.
Hi.
I think he has to. I guess the decision Jonathan has to make is Brandon bluffing? And if he is bluffing, you let it resolve, and then Brandon's dead. But if you let it resolve and Brandon's not bluffing, then you just lost.
If he had a second Searing Spear, he was dead to Jonathan's line anyway. Like in response to your X-Sword trigger, just Searing Spear you.
Right. I guess that's true as well.
I think that was way overthought by Jonathan.
Yeah, that is entirely possible. Where sometimes being good at this game can cost you some plays, whereas if you just run out your business, but.
I like to run out my business any time of game. I'm about business. My dog radar.
Why isn't he here playing?
I don't know. I saw someone else in the store about one of the 40K players. Like,
there's a dog out there?
Yes.
Yeah.
What kind of dog?
I don't know, just like
he's real cool looking.
40, 45 pound dog.
I've asked once to have my dog in here, just like run in, because I had him in the car with me, run in, buy one card, run out, because I still didn't want to leave him in the car, because it was real hot. And I was politely told no, which is fine, but then I was surprised to see, and it didn't look like a service dog.
No, that guy's not one.
Well, you can also have seizure dogs, stuff like that.
Okay.
But he would still have some kind of...
Plus, I mean, we like that guy a whole lot more.
Oh, okay.
So you lost in round 2?
3.
Round 3 to, oh, you guys played.
Hey!
You guys played.
And he was really gracious about it, too. It was nice. Except he wasn't at all.
I had really good opening hands and he was like twice.
So, 7 ways to protect from targeted removal in this deck. Didn't see them one time. And that's the whole reason Faith Shield is even in there. Because just in case Brave the Elements 4 of isn't enough. So 3 Faith Shield, just to pad it a little bit.
You love...
Still.
You love Brave.
I do. It's great. It's won me, my matches up until now. Actually, my matches before now were not very long. It was kind of a decisive...
You rolled Jonathan pretty quick.
Yeah. It was just the speed, and I curved out really nice. But then against decks like that, especially, I've got to wait a turn to do all my stuff, so I've got things to cover, the Brave the Elements or the Faith Shield. And if I have Tally out, I've got to back up another turn.
Right.
But it's worth the tempo.
There is a question in the chat, and I'm interested to see, the Burning Earth is a triggered ability, right?
Correct.
So when you tap it, the mana is immediate, but the trigger from Burning Earth goes on the stack.
Correct.
So you can respond with all your spells and drawing and stuff like that. So you can have your death on the stack, and then extort in response to things and stuff like that.
Correct.
It'd be, to be perfectly honest with you, I'd have to go back and rewatch that segment to see the entire line to figure out what was going on. But if it was just a situation in which Brandon Gibbs was just dead on board and then just speared and hoped that Jonathan did something weird and it worked, that was one of the greatest things I've ever seen on the stream. Use your opponent's... But that's what they always say about, like, in poker. Like, you can only bluff an opponent who's capable of being bluffed. You can only bluff an opponent who's capable of thinking what cards you're playing and not just playing the cards that they have.
That's also what Michael Jacob always says on his stream. He's like, you know what? I made the correct play. If my opponent had this, he played this way. My opponent's just bad. I can't play around a bad opponent.
Yes. Nothing. Yeah. It's very interesting to see how that would go. I'm going to talk to these guys afterwards. We'll give a man on the street interview. All right, Zach, I'm out here in the feature match area. Can't be worse than Sheldon.
And then you cast this card and
Yeah, I don't know where anyone's going to find a judge per table.
What was the question in the chat there?
Tech Guy 40, that's why there needs to be a judge per table to take care of the scoring and legal moves for the players.
Well, that's not how this works, because this is,
Virginia?
It's a competitive level event. It's not such a high level competitive event that we don't have that kind of judge staff. We do have the requisite level of judges to run this event. But remember, this is just a completely for funsies magic stream of a fun event we have at our local card shop. Believe it or not, I do not have the staff, technology, or to be perfectly honest, interest. I don't think there was any mistakes or anything that happened there.
I don't know, when I'm getting hungry. When I get hungry, I play sloppy.
How'd you do, Mike Rob?
It's not my day, sir.
Uh-oh. Can't win every tournament we have.
Hey, I just said that.
Although I'd take the 2 that you've won already. That's a pretty good run.
Yeah. He got me. I got him to 2 the first game and won the second game. Just flooded out in my 23 land deck. It's pretty awesome.
I flooded out in a 22 land deck twice in a row, mulliganing each time.
You're playing against American Control? No, against Roger?
Yeah.
Roger also holds the record for player in the tournament with most number of nose rings. At 1. It looks like Brandon mulliganing down here at least to 6, possibly to 5. I will admit to having missed that first mulligan. Of course, him being on the draw is going to be slightly better, but him being on the draw is also going to make his deck slightly worse. To be fair, in both games so far, for as good as Jonathan Wright stabilized in that previous game with 3 lands. But to be fair, Brandon's had pretty good draws as well. He's had turn 1 Stromkirk in both games. No room.
I'm gonna step out. Yeah, that's fine.
2 Stromkirks on both turn 1s. And a 2
I call
cost
that chair, though.
2 cost haste creature.
Got it blocked. Yeah. It's alright.
Question in the chat about how many players are in the event. There are 24 players. So not nearly as many as we had hoped for, but still a reasonable showing.
Wait a minute.
That's not where you want to be with that.
I got time for another corn dog quest. Might not get a corn dog, might get something different. But
Here's something I want to point out. Did Jonathan just play an island and then pass back?
it appears to.
How is he keeping a 1-lander in this spot? He may still be flustered from the. For those of you just joining,
that wasn't turn 1.
No, Jonathan was on the play.
It's mold of 4 or 5 or whatever it's going to have. It's going to look really good.
He may just be a little bit flustered because for those of you just joining us and for those of you in here who may not have seen it, I'm pretty sure that Brandon Gibbs completely Jedi mind tricked Brandon in the previous game, or Jonathan. I think that he was dead on board
I'm going to leave my state.
Yeah, he Searing Speared them, and Jonathan tried to play around a second burn spell, and in the process died to a Burning Earth. It wasn't like he made a mistake, but by playing around cards that Brandon possibly could have had, which
No,
he did
that
not
root
have.
down was played on turn 1, guys. He didn't play that on. He didn't play it untapped.
No, both of these guys missed their second land drop.
And third and fourth.
But it's much better. I'd much rather be in Brandon's spot with the no land all spells hand than in Jonathan's. So we've got a 3/3 Stromkirk here. Oh, and a Rampager for the blowout. So that's going to be 6, 7, 8, 9, -3, so 6 total. Dropping Jonathan all the way down to 5. So for as good as the first 2 games were in this matchup, looks like a one-lander is going to decide the third game. There is an interesting spot there that if Jonathan had Miracle Determinist, he could have cast it. Because you Ghost Quarter your own island and get up to play against it.
That is
Because
fun.
the Miracle trigger works like the old Madness trigger, which is like the card goes to the Madness zone. There's like a Miracle zone and you can respond to it. They do that a lot in Legacy with Miracles, where you reveal Terminus, then you crack your fetch to go get the white source. So here comes the... it tries to Essence Scatter the Stromkirk Double. I do need to step out for a second here. You guys can interact and chit-chat